Afternoon? Morning. Did we eat lunch yet? No. Good morning. My name is Morgan Lindsay. I am the Secretary Treasurer of SEIU Healthcare Pennsylvania. Any SEIU members in the house? Woo! We're so happy to be partnered today with a bunch of other allied organizations to lift up what I would say is one of the most important issues in healthcare today, which is unsafe staffing in our hospitals. And so rather than a bunch of people, administrators at hospitals, elected officials, or union organizers, we want to hear from nurses, right? Which is, I think, that's why I'm here today, at least, to hear from nurses about the actual issues that they face every day. So right now, we're going to hear from a bunch of nurses and those that are here to support nurses. And then we're going to hit the road and go take exactly what we want to say to an elected official that's been standing in our way for having safe staffing at the bedside, and in turn, we've lost many loved ones, right? So first, before we get started, we thought it made sense to have a blessing from a pastor who's here to support us. So Pastor Scott, please. Thank you.
Thank you. And I was given the grace of making a few comments too, so I'm going to occupy your time for a minute. Thank you so much for this opportunity. You really inspire me. And sure, I can talk right into it. I'm good with microphones. I am really inspired by what you're doing today. In the proud history of direct action work in our country, you guys are taking your voice to the people who need to hear it, and you've done the work. And faith communities throughout our history have stood behind you, and I want you to know you have our prayers and our support as much as you have it today. And I've already talked to some of your coordinators about how I want to follow up on that to make sure more faith communities join you in this work. No less than the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King talked all about direct action with his work and how it's done right, and you've done it right. You did the 4 steps he talks about in his letter from a Birmingham jail. You did the research. You did the research so well, you wrote the legislation on how to fix the problem. Heck yeah, you did the research. Then you tried to get the conversation going, and God bless you for spending over 4 years patiently trying to get the conversation started. I wouldn't have lasted 4 years. And you all have kept that work going. And then you've done the other work, which I want to talk about, and why I want to bless you today. You've purified yourselves to go take this direct action. Purification means you've prepared yourself for whatever comes to make sure your voice gets heard, because that's how important it is to your heart and souls. And I can tell you you're purified for this work because of what you've done. You are nurses. And I know that everyone in healthcare brings their heart and soul to their work. But what boggles my mind, what blows me away, what inspires me is that you lead with it. Some of you know my wife is an RN. She comes from a family of RNs. It's like the family business for them. You can imagine Thanksgiving with them. I've learned a lot sitting at that table. And what I've learned is that when you bring your heart and soul to your work, you are paying an unbelievable cost because our healthcare system is broken and leaves it on you to suffer for it. And it's wrong. This is more than a contractual issue. This is a human injustice and cruelty issue. And I'm so honored to get to stand with you and bless you for the work you're doing today, raising your voice in direct action. Further, I just want to say that I'm going to take my work to do my homework now, because I think our faith communities need to join you in this work, because it is more than a contractual issue. We're going to have to do our research, do our work, and engage in trying to get people to talk. And I'm sure we're going to face the same stony silence you have over these last 4 years. Don't worry. Because then we're going to purify ourselves, and we're going to stand arm in arm with you as you continue to carry on this work. Because we need better staffing in our hospitals. We need to make a healthcare system that actually cares for the people who deserve it and allows the caregivers to know the support they deserve for the work they do. So a prayer for you today and a blessing upon your work. This is not to make you pray, but I invite you to, however you wish, to be reverent as I offer these words. Oh God, we know that your world, full of beauty, full of glorious life, also knows great suffering and loss due to our many failings. Today we commemorate the hearts and the lives lost in the critical juncture of caregiver and patient, where lack of support for the caregiver leads to moral injury in their hearts and souls and the death of innocent people. Help all of us to hear and bear witness to these myriad tragedies, not turning away in fear, but honoring them. Honoring lives lost and hearts crushed. Make it so that the suffering of nurses and loss of patients is not in vain. Inspire all those engaged in the work of healthcare, from nurse and doctor to administrator and insurer to regulator and legislator, to honor the truth that our human systems are fraught with brokenness and cruelty. Raise each and every one of them in their positions to always seek better, knowing that their work is actually your work. Our God who desires abundant life and eternal love for all his beloved creatures. Help all of us to resist the temptation to silence and inaction, but God, instead, help us to seek and act with courage, knowing justice and righteousness flow when the hills ring out with truth. And so finally, God, we ask you to bless the work today that we are doing. Bless us with safety and with peace. We are ever thankful for the opportunity to make our voices be heard, for you give us this gift in our creation. May we always be thankful for this and all the innumerable gifts you have given us. And in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
God bless you, God love you, and thank you so much for this chance to encourage you and support you in this work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have another nurse. I would call her a safe staffing warrior, Tina Siegel.
Yay,
Okay. Thank you. My name is Tina Siegel. I've been an LPN in long-term care for the past 37 years.
37!
And you might say, why is a long-term care nurse here, supporting these hospital nurses? And it's because safe staffing is an industry-wide problem all across the state of Pennsylvania. So we all need to support each other. And same as in hospitals, it's our residents that suffer when we don't have enough time to take care of them. In my facilities, it's just an easy, baths have to wait, or you're rushed through a bath. You're rushed through feeding someone because you have the next person you have to go on to. And just the simplest things. I have one, like I've said before, I have one 90-year-old lady, and she gets anxious and nervous. And she's said numerous times, I wish I just had somebody I could talk to for 5 minutes. I would love to be that person. They have very interesting stories to tell. But where am I going to get that 5 minutes? I already don't have enough time to do all the duties that I'm assigned in a day. So that's why I'm here today. Because Patient Safety Act addresses challenges in hospitals, and it will do that immediately. And then in the long run, safe staffing across Pennsylvania can be solved for in nursing homes and hospitals. We'll lead the way together. And like Kim had said, we have bipartisan support in the House of Representatives. Over 50% have agreed, have signed on to the bill and said they would sign it, or vote for it if it was out on the floor for vote. But where is it? It's stuck in the Health Committee in the House.
Boo!
And who's holding that up? Kathy Rapp.
Kathy Rapp.
One person should not have that much power. It needs to go out there before the voting people that we have elected into office, so they can do what we have asked them to do. We need to do something with Kathy Rapp, and that's what we're going to do today, is to go and show her that we're not going to sit down, we're going to stand up, and we're going to put all the pressure on her that we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. And it's really what the nursing profession is about. It's about sticking together. She's a long-term care nurse, but here standing with hospital nurses, because when we're together, we're stronger, right? So thanks so much, Tina. So next up, we have an actual healthcare champion. Unlike Kathy Rapp, we have someone who's a candidate for state senate, and she's running against what I would think of as Kathy Rapp's counterpart in the Senate, the person who is blocking us from being able to move this bill forward when we get it over to the Senate. So we need to elect our healthcare champion, Brianna Check, so we can move our Patient Safety Act forward. Brianna! Woo! Gotta hold the trigger. Hold the trigger on here. Yep.
I am familiar with megaphones, trust me. When you're out in the field as much as I am with this, you know how to run a megaphone. So normally I would ad-lib, but this is too important to ad-lib. So, excuse me if I stumble a little bit as I read my notes, but I feel like you guys deserve a little thought and consideration today. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Rihanna Check, and I'm running for State Senate in the 50th District. The 50th District covers Crawford County, Mercer County, and Lawrence County, so I bet some of you are wondering why the hell I'm all the way out here in Warren. I grew up on a farm outside of Corey, Pennsylvania. Don't hold it against me, please. I spent my life working on that farm. I spent my life working in all sorts of blue-collar fields. I have been in hospitality. I have been in industry. I have worked alongside kitchen staff and in mills. I have even spent 8 years in the Pennsylvania Army National Guard, where I got my degree in political science and law. Some political figures have even went as far as to call me a badass. And I'm telling you this today because I still don't hold a candle to each and every single one of you who is in the nursing industry. I can't do it. I am glad you do. But now, we come into our issue. I know what you guys are capable of. You do it every single day. You guys stand there and you sit and you see all of these patients that are hurting and struggling. And all you are asking for is a little help from people like me, my counterpart, Michelle Brooks, and Kathy Rapp, who probably isn't even going to be in the office today. But that's not why we're marching. Kathy Rapp is the head of the Health and Human Services Committee, and she is the one who is holding up your bill. My opponent, Michelle Brooks, is her counterpart in the Senate. I'm here today on behalf of all of you because Kathy Rapp is running unopposed, and that's a crying shame. That doesn't mean we can't hold her accountable for her actions. Because once we get it out of the House, we gotta get it through the Senate, and that's why I'm here. 4 years ago, Michelle Brooks made a promise to you. She even went as far as to co-sponsor legislation for you. You guys put your blood, sweat, and tears into getting her reelected, and what did she do?
Turned her back.
She turned her back on you and let that bill die.
Shame.
Boo!
For far too long, legislatures have been making false promises and saying whatever they need to get elected. I'm here to say that time has come for it to be enough. I'm here because I think saying what you need to voters to get elected is wrong. And I drove all the way out here from almost Ohio. I know. To earn back some of that trust that you lost to her. No, scratch that. That she stole from you. Today I'm here with you today to march to Kathy Rapp's office, the men and women who were asked to put their lives and the lives of their family on the line during the COVID-19 pandemic. For far too long, Pennsylvania's legislative body has put the profits of the hospitals and nursing home association above the needs of the staff. I know this because my grandma spent 17 years as a nurse. And whenever she came home and whenever we had our family dinners, she would tell me about all the things that were wrong in her staff, or with her staffing and in her hospital. She worked at Corey Memorial Hospital before it moved up behind Walmart. I'm going to read this one word for word because I'm not going to misquote my grandma. She told me there was never enough help, how she barely made enough money to make ends meet, and how the hospital would rather train and hire new nurses than to support and compensate the nurses who devoted their lives to helping their patients.
Still true today. Yep. Hasn't changed.
That was almost 15 years ago, and from what I can see, it hasn't changed.
No.
The nursing environment has only gotten worse, in my opinion. It's gotten so bad that nurses are leaving the industry in waves. What's my opponent's solution? Her solution is to put money into the education system to fast-track nursing programs for people who already have 4-year degrees. You know what that tells me? It tells me she wants to hire people who didn't put nursing as their first choice. And what that's going to make is people who are unprepared, underdeveloped, and only working for a paycheck.
Uneducated.
I don't deserve that as a citizen of Pennsylvania. You guys don't deserve that as the nurses who are taking care of the people. So I'm here marching for the nurses who go 8 to 16 hours without having a bathroom break. I'm marching for the nurses who are forced to choose when patients receive quality care. I'm marching for the nurses who are traumatized and burnt out by the pandemic and are leaving the profession in droves. And I am marching for the nurses like my grandma, who dedicated their lives to the health and well-being of their patients and of their communities. You all deserve a legislature that is going to fight for the front lines and not the donors that put money in their pockets.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rihanna.
Well, that's incredibly inspiring. Why are all of you marching? Eileen, why are you marching?
Well, I just retired not quite a year ago, and early. Didn't want to. It devastates me because I'm a nurse. I'll be a nurse at heart for the rest of my life. But I've seen what's happened in hospitals and other settings in nursing. I've seen how the patients have suffered tremendously. It breaks our hearts as nurses. It hurts you morally and ethically to know that you cannot possibly give them the care that they deserve or the care that we know we're capable of giving, because we've got so much put onto us that administration knows there's no way you can handle it.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Eileen. Sarah, why are you marching?
The corporatized healthcare model pisses me off.
Yes, no longer. We will not stand any longer. Thank you. So today, as we are marching, let's remember why we're marching. Last speaker, I think, for the day before we actually march is also one of our safe staffing champions and a nurse from Mount Etna Medical Center. Danelle, why are you marching?
That's my rap.
Today, my friends, my comrades, my sisters and brothers in scrubs, we are marching. We are marching as nurses, as healthcare workers, as the family of nurses, and potentially the consumers of healthcare that is necessary and life-saving. I march as a nurse of 19 years who so desperately wants to be able to deliver care in a way that is safe, but also takes care of that person as a whole person, mind, body, and spirit, because that is what we are to do in healthcare. And what has happened is absolutely disgusting. Kathy Rapp has held up our ability to care for our patients, our families, and our communities. And simply because she refuses to put this through the committee and put it where it belongs, into law, there is no more excuses. We will not take excuses. So today we are going to march. And before we march, I'm going to leave you with a quote that is dear and important to me. This quote is from the mother of nursing, the one who built up modern day nursing and what we need to restore. I attribute my success to this: I never gave nor took any excuse. Let's march.
Yeah.
staffing saves lives! Safe staffing saves lives!
Safe staffing saves lives!
Unsafe staffing!
Thank you, everyone, for coming. We're going to start with a moment of silence and remembrance for more than 1,000 patients whose lives could have been saved during the last 4 years if we had safe staffing standards in Pennsylvania. Can you bring the coffin up, please? Thank you. My name is Karen Hipple. I'm a licensed practical nurse. I currently work in a nursing home, but for 38 years I worked in acute care at Titusville Area Hospital. In that time, I've seen staffing change dramatically. In the 1980s, we started out working with aides, orderlies, LPNs, and RNs. All were working as a team. We had team nursing back then for patient care. First, they got rid of the aides 2 months after I started. I was told I wasn't hired so that the aides would be laid off because there was a word out that that was going to happen. Well, it did happen. So, from there on, they got rid of the aides. Then they got rid of the unit clerks who kept us all in order, kept lab orders going, kept x-ray orders going, kept us nurses in a profile that we could take care of our patients better, answering the phones, which is huge. Then they started getting rid of the LPNs. I was one of the last LPNs at Titusville, and I could see the writing on the wall then. Now everything in the hospital is up to the RNs, and if you're lucky, you've got a patient care aide or an MA to help you. A lot of times not. I know what it's like to have 5, 6, 7, 8 patients and have to do all their care and the charting. It's not possible. The patients don't get individualized care. There's no time to sit with them and talk. As my friend said earlier, you know, they just want to sit and have a chat about what they went through during World War II. And those are the memories that are so important to me as a nurse. So you're just moving. It's like an assembly line. You're moving on to the next patient because you have to get them their meds. You have to get them their treatments. And nurses can miss those subtle signs that can mean the difference between life and death. And it happens in an instant. That's why we're here. Research shows for every surgical patient over 4 that a nurse is assigned, the chance of a patient dying increases 7%. 7%. How many of you guys have over 4 patients on your workload? I don't know many that have 4 patients. That is just the surgical patients. And that's just the mortality events. We know that short staffing has significant consequences for other kinds of patients and a whole host of other quality of care measures. They're just not getting those little things like turned every 2 hours, repositioning, fed, all those individualized care things. Every day we work with unsafe staffing. Patients that are at a huge risk. I'm afraid I'm going to miss something. And how do I live with that? How do I live with that the rest of my life thinking, oh my God, I should have paid attention. And we're working short-staffed every single day, every shift. I'd like to turn it over now to Eileen Kelly. She's an RN in Warren to tell us more about the Patient Safety Act that can solve this crisis. Eileen.
Wow. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. And I want you all to know we have all of you here, but we have nurses out throughout Pennsylvania that are following us. They're going to watch this live stream. They've been messaging with us. They met with us in DC. We text each other. We have Zoom meetings. We all follow this. We support each other. I've been a nurse for 27 years now. I started off at Warren General. I worked in the med-surg unit, and then I worked in ICU. I worked in Erie for a while at the St. Vincent's Cardiovascular Intensive Care Unit. Then I came back to Warren and I worked in the dialysis unit, where I finished up my career as the clinical coordinator there, and I retired last May. Since then, I'm giving my time as a nurse. I'm going to be devoted to Nurses of PA and any group that is supporting our safe staffing legislation. I sit on the I'm the vice president of the board of Nurses of PA right now, so I plan to give my time to help and be available, and let's get the Patient Safety Act going. 4 years ago, nurses delivered more than 10,000 petition signatures to Kathy Rapp on stretchers at the state capitol. I was present with 125 nurses when these were delivered. In response, she promised us a hearing on this legislation to set safe staffing standards. Since then, she has ignored the calls, the emails, the letters, and the pleas from nurses on this issue, and has chosen instead to do the work of hospital lobbyists and not call a hearing on our bill. Despite our advocacy efforts, Representative Rapp said she hasn't heard a real grievance from nurses about safe staffing. I know this isn't true because many of us visited her in her office, discussing our grievances personally with her. The only reason she hasn't heard is because she chooses not to listen. Representative Rapp is representing the Hospital Association and her constituents by blocking this legislation. We have a majority co-sponsoring our bill, and if this went in for a vote today, guess what? We would win, and this legislation would be passed. But she's blocking us. As Kathy Rapp continues to ignore healthcare professionals, community members, the studies and the statistics, and her constituents, we are taking the solemn step of showing her the costs of her obstructionism, which is why we are here today. For years, we have been fighting for our patients, and many of our legislators have stood with us, while others have ignored us. As nurses, we have been sounding the alarm. We have been advocating across the state and across the country, and we have been lifting up the policy changes that patients, caregivers, our families, and our community members need. Having just spent all day Thursday with nurses across the country at the National Nurses March on Florence Nightingale's birthday, which was pretty cool, I learned that we have the same goals. We want to keep our patients safe, and by providing quality care under safe staffing legislation. We've talked to administrators, we've talked to management, etc., etc., etc. We're talked out. CEOs have been putting profits over patients, and we will not stop fighting until they make safe staffing standards. The Patient Safety Act, House Bill 106. But especially now, frontline nurses have just led our communities through one of the most deadly public health crises in history. We know that it is dangerous and neglectful to continue tolerating the bare minimum mentality that prioritizes profits at the expense of care. But this is not our first time asking Kathy Rapp to hear us. Since then, we have lost so many lives, and that is why we are here today, mourning. We cannot do this alone. We need our allies to help keep the pressure on legislators who tell us anything to get elected. Legislators who will only listen to big corporate because they fund their campaigns. As Kathy Rapp's constituent, I am deeply saddened by her response to our call for help, which is no response at all. We know that Kathy Rapp, as the House Healthcare Committee chairperson, has the power to give us a hearing, or the power to bring this bill up for a vote. Yet, she is the one legislator who is preventing us from saving the lives of thousands. So today, we marched. Today, we stand together in solidarity. Today, we are fighting for our patients and our community members and the future of our profession. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah! Good job, Eileen!
Thank you, Eileen. Our next speaker drove up from Pittsburgh this morning to be with us and tell us about the challenges she's been seeing in her hospital and others. Katrina, welcome. Katrina Reckenwald, please come up.
And welcome.
Hi everybody, I'm Katrina Reckenwald and I have been a nurse for 12 years. And not only was I a nurse, but I was an aide for 9 years prior. So I have been in healthcare for over 20 years. I know a lot of people think that this crisis started with the pandemic, but the truth is that it didn't. That's what the hospital administrators want you to believe, but it's been a long time in the making. We've been telling hospital executives and our elected officials about the looming crisis for years now, and here our patients are paying the price. We have ICUs with more patients over them by 2. For those of you who don't know, normally in the ICUs they should have 1 nurse to 2 patients. Around the state, we know, and even in Pittsburgh, we know that there are hospitals that are taking care of 3 and 4 critically ill patients. Every patient requires a lot of care. Now we have nurses caring for 2 patients that would normally be caring for 1 patient to 1 nurse. No one wants to leave their shift wondering if they might have missed something or mixed up a medicine because they had too many patients. We all go in trying to do the best work that we can, but we don't have enough time to do that. We do this job because we care and we want to give our patients excellent care. And when we can't, it hurts the patients, but it hurts us too. Nurses have left their shift crying. The bad working conditions is what is driving people to leave, which of course makes the conditions even worse. It's a vicious cycle and we need to break it. That's what the Patient Safety Act will do. Nurses are burning out. They are being forced out by people like Rep. Kathy Rapp, who are holding up common sense solutions like safe staffing standards. Nurses will come back to the bedside if they know they can safely care for patients and practice their profession the way they were trained to. A little fact that's not in my script is recently Pittsburgh did a study at the Pitt School of Social Work. 93% of healthcare workers are considering leaving the profession. Can you all imagine what would happen if 93% of our nurses left the hospital today? With a 41% turnover rate nationally, we would be in an even worse crisis. And guess what? We are there. We've lost too many nurses and too many patients waiting for Kathy Rapp. She needs to live up to her promise that she made to hold a hearing on this bill so we can have a vote. Patients need it, and Pennsylvania is demanding it. So Kathy Rapp, we are calling on you today to meet with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina. Katrina Reckenwald. Now, as you all know, we're here to mark very somber reality. That in the time that Kathy Rapp has been blocking this legislation, more than 1,000 patients have lost their lives due to unsafe staffing.
Shame on her.
It's very shameful. But we are also here to send a message to her. Not one more person should lose their life due to this obstruction. The coffin we have filled here in front of me has memoriam cards and messages from nurses and patients across the state. We're going to walk it up and leave it on our doorstep now. And then we're going to take a few minutes to show her and everyone else the cost of her inaction. We'd like everyone who is able to lie down on the ground as part of a die-in. If you're unable to do so, please join us in another moment of silence as we do this. Thank you.
Aren't you glad your mother didn't abort you? You're a joke.
Wrong rally.
Aren't you glad your mother didn't abort you, or you wouldn't be laying here?
Wrong rally.
This is about safe patient staffing. It's nurses. Good luck, buddy.
Oh. Yeah, but
Move
don't
along.
tell me to move on, brother.
Yeah, move along.
Don't tell me to move on.
Then come.
Thank you for the Constitution. I'm a
Then
man on the street as you do.
Come lay down with us then. Come lay down. Come lay down with us. Come on.
Lay down with you.
Then move along.
Safe staffing.
She's a good woman.
I hope you get as good hospital care as
So
she
are
does.
you.
Safe staffing.
You're a liar. Yeah, you're part of the crowd that yelled crucify him. I didn't touch you, but you don't touch me. If you call me 3 more feet, I'm going to take you, and I'm going to have you arrested for stalking. So this game works both ways, baby.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. And I am recording right now and go ahead and call emergency services if we need to.
Well, you're chasing me. You're stalking me. You're harassing me. And I have a right to freedom of speech.
Okay, let's get back to it. He's leaving. Did you get a photo? Let's get back to it.
We took this action today because patients are dying, because we don't have safe staffing standards. This is serious, and we need everyone to know that there is a solution. Kathy Rapp is holding up. I'd like to especially thank our allies, Nurses of PA, SEIU, Nurses Alliance, RASA, Indivisible, anybody else. Thank you all families and friends. Thank you all for supporting us today. Safe staffing, 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 saves lives, saves lives, saves lives, saves lives, saves lives, saves lives, saves lives. Too bad she didn't have the confidence in her decision to be here today.
Speakers say that there are no grievances anymore. You left them right on the doors.
And I moved for her, and I heard that, and I'm like, it's gone.